Hello friends and welcome back to the studio. Today we're talking about gimbals and GoPros, specifically trying to answer the question, do you need to use a gimbal with a GoPro? Now about a month ago I asked you guys in a poll on YouTube if you thought that gimbals were needed for GoPros. And 74% of you said that no, you don't need to use a gimbal with a GoPro. I have to admit that that was my first assumption as well, but there were about 18% of you that said otherwise, that yes, you do need a gimbal. So today I have the Hohem iSteady 3 and we're going to be talking about this gimbal, and I'm going to give you 4 reasons why you do need a gimbal with a GoPro and 2 reasons why you don't. Also, if you're new to the channel, my name is Susie and I work with my partner Martin to talk about GoPros, smartphones, and mirrorless cameras because those are the 3 tools that we use to run our production company and also make travel vlogs here on YouTube. So if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and check out some of our other videos about GoPro. So let's first answer the question, what is a gimbal? Gimbal is a physical stabilizer that attaches to a camera such as the GoPro, and it helps you record super smooth, silky footage on your camera. It's really important to use a gimbal if you don't have some form of built-in stabilization in your camera. Reason number 1 is if you want to guarantee get the smoothest, most cinematic footage out of your GoPro. If you take a look at the way that a gimbal moves, it moves in a way that humans have a really hard time replicating. You can, as a human, lock your arms and get your physical movements down to be very gimbal-like, but it takes a lot of practice and really fine control over your motor skills. So if you want to just jump into it and be able to get super smooth pans and some really cinematic shots, then a gimbal is definitely the way to go. So this is the Hohem iSteady Pro 3, and it's a really cool looking gimbal and it actually works super well. It's a 3-axis gimbal, it's got a rechargeable battery with a 12-hour lifespan, and it's even splash proof, so you can take it out in the rain and still use it. You can also pair with your iPhone or your Android phone to give you some remote control over your GoPro, which we'll talk about later. If you're wondering, GoPro themselves do have a gimbal that they still sell on their website. It's called the GoPro Karma Grip, and it used to be, I think, $200. It's now down to $100, so it's a pretty good deal, but the only catch is that it only works with the GoPro 5, 6, and 7. And that's one of the benefits of this iSteady gimbal. It's about $90, so it's about equivalent to the price of the Karma Grip, but it can support any GoPro model out there, including the Hero 9 and the Hero 8, and even the Osmo Action and the Insta360 One R. So it's a really flexible gimbal that supports all kinds of action cameras outside of GoPro, which can be really handy because right now action cameras are evolving at a super fast pace, so you don't necessarily want to be contained to one brand in particular. Reason number 2 to use a gimbal with your action camera is if you have an action camera that is older than the GoPro Hero 7. As of the GoPro Hero 7, it started shipping with Hypersmooth, which is GoPro's form of built-in stabilization, and GoPro initially said that it was going to give you gimbal-like footage. It was actually the GoPro Hero 7 that brought us back to GoPro as a brand because we initially swore off GoPro forever after we first used the Hero 2 and we were so disappointed with it. But the Hero 7 is one of those cameras that we were really impressed with the first time we used it, partially because of Hypersmooth. So we've been dedicated GoPro users ever since. Now ever since the Hero 7, Hypersmooth has been getting better and better, and here on the GoPro Hero 9, we're now on Hypersmooth 3.0, which is the best version of Hypersmooth to ever come out. I catch with Hypersmooth is that it does tend to crop into your video a little bit, so that may or may not be a deal breaker, just something to be aware of. And also new with the Hero 9 is that GoPro Max Lens, which unfortunately doesn't let you shoot 4K video, but you can shoot 2.7K video, and that's supposed to give you the smoothest footage ever. Unfortunately, we don't have that Max Lens right now to test out, but again, Hypersmooth Boost is so far really, really good, and that's been our main form of stabilization that we use with our GoPro. So if you have an older action camera with subpar stabilization, then a gimbal can help fix that. Reason number 3 is if you want to remote control your GoPro. This gimbal does come with a smartphone app that you can connect the gimbal to, and it does have some limitations in that you can't preview your footage and you can't exactly start recording and have fine control over the GoPro, but you can have a lot of control over the gimbal. So you can actually use that app to set the GoPro and the gimbal across the room and use your smartphone as like a remote control to change how the GoPro is moving. And even though you can't control the GoPro with the smartphone app, you can enable voice commands on the GoPro so that you can start and stop recording from far away. So it's kind of a win-win situation if you use all those tools together. And the 4th reason to use a gimbal with a GoPro is if you want to do motion time lapses. So you can enable the GoPro to do a time lapse, and if you stick it on the gimbal and connect it to the Hohem smartphone app, you can actually program the gimbal to move throughout the time lapse and almost pan across an image. Motion time lapses are really cool and creative, but they're also super helpful for storytelling because they can help convey the passage of time and also panning across a super wide image. So we love to do motion time lapses, and honestly, if you don't have a gimbal like this, it's nearly impossible to do a motion time lapse with the GoPro without setting up a super intricate and really complicated setup. So those are 4 reasons why you should use a gimbal with a GoPro, but what about the 2 reasons that you shouldn't use a gimbal with the GoPro? First reason is if you don't agree with any of the 4 reasons that I just mentioned. If you're somebody who doesn't care about remote controlling your GoPro from across the room, or doesn't need to do motion time lapses, and doesn't really need fine-tuned, super smooth control over their GoPro, then sure, you probably don't need a gimbal, and you can get away with using Hypersmooth and still get really smooth footage. And the second reason to not use a gimbal with a GoPro is that this gimbal requires charging, and it's also pretty big and bulky, so it's just another tool that you have to keep charged and also have space in your bag to take with you. So if you're looking for a super minimal setup with just the GoPro and maybe just a grip or a tripod, then you probably don't want to add a gimbal to complicate the mix. So now I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? What do you think about gimbals and GoPros? Let me know in the comments. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content relating to GoPros, smartphones, and mirrorless cameras, and filmmaking on the go. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.